Welcome to We Code, You Launch, the startup community podcast from CodeLaunch and Improving. This is episode 85, and today we have Skylar Steudter, a former LinkedIn employee turned entrepreneur leading Believe It Today, a company helping people grow their LinkedIn presence in just 90 days. If you're hearing this on Spotify, iTunes, or Amazon, or anywhere else, guess what? You can now watch We Code, You Launch, the podcast, on our YouTube channel. Watch the 2024 World Championship video there and subscribe if you enjoy it and learn what CodeLaunch is all about. We'll get right to our special guest, Skylar, in just a minute. But first, I am Jason W. Taylor, president and founder of CodeLaunch. This podcast is for tech startups and the community of founders, technologists, and investors who support CodeLaunch, the world's only free accelerator where elite professional software developers compete to launch tech startups. Today's guest is someone who knows LinkedIn from the inside out. In fact, we met Skylar at Startup Mania in Miami 2 weeks ago, and right away I was like, you got to come on the podcast. So Skylar Steudter is a former top-performing employee at LinkedIn turned entrepreneur. After years of helping clients grow their presence on the platform from behind the scenes, he took the leap, founded Believe It Today, and hasn't looked back. Skylar now helps professionals elevate their personal brands and turn LinkedIn into a real growth engine in 90 days or less. His journey from corporate security to creative freedom is one many dream about, but few actually do. Skylar's all about helping people show up online with intention. If you've ever wondered how to turn your LinkedIn presence into a magnet for real opportunities, you're going to want to take notes. Plus, special surprise, Skylar is going to roast my professional LinkedIn profile, and I will have to take my medicine, good, bad, or indifferent. Thank you very much again, one more time, Skylar. Welcome to the We Code, You Launch podcast.
Thank you, Jason. And yeah, like you said, Skylar Steudter, founder of Believe It Today. And I guess all the other stuff, we'll get into it in a second.
All right, Skylar. So you were a professional at LinkedIn and you were helping people with their profiles from behind the scenes. And you decided there was an opportunity to cut the cord and go out on your own. Tell us about the turning point, which made you walk away from LinkedIn and bet on yourself full time.
Well, so, first of all, working at LinkedIn was amazing. And I think as far as corporate goes, I think working at an organization in tech as modern and as straightforward as LinkedIn was is a dream to many people. And I appreciate that opportunity tons, and like the stuff they do for you, the freedom you have, the flexibility was just amazing. I mean, I think I told you, like, we had breakfast, lunch, dinner in the office. We were invited to Las Vegas for 5 days for sales kickoff. Like, it was a really great opportunity, and it was for me basically my job right out of college. And I was working for sales, basically in sales for LinkedIn, and learned a ton from that experience in sales that I then took into entrepreneurship. Now, the reason why I left LinkedIn and corporate to start my own business, I always knew I wanted to do my own thing. I guess the one thing that was more surprising is how fast that then happened. Because initially I thought I'm going to be at LinkedIn for maybe 2, 3, 4 years, maybe then switch working for a startup, and then at some point build my own business. But I was at LinkedIn for like 14 months-ish or so, when I then decided, like, hey, that urge was just too strong always for me. That's the reason why I moved to the US with 18 years to study here and all stuff. I majored in entrepreneurship. And I felt like, even though at LinkedIn everything was great, it wasn't what I needed to do in that moment in time, which is why then now 2 years ago, I left and started my own business.
All right. So you just knew it was in your blood and you had to do it. And the time had come, you'd put in the work and investing in LinkedIn. And I got to ask this, when you joined LinkedIn, did you already kind of see a path to becoming a LinkedIn profile, marketing consultant, or was that just something naturally happened while you were at LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, it naturally happened. Not even while I was at LinkedIn. It was really the main thing, like I told you, that I wanted to do my own thing one day. And that kind of slowly happened. And then there was some things about being in corporate where I was personally just realizing that's not the spot that I wanted to be at. And so I've decided to leave LinkedIn before I had the idea of starting the business in that way, right? And then in that process of leaving LinkedIn, I had people that I already knew, founders, CEOs, reach out to me and ask me, "Hey, Skylar, can you maybe come to our team, speak about how they can use LinkedIn better, or just introduce LinkedIn really as a platform to them because they've not been using it. But I, as a CEO, leader of my company, I would like my team to use LinkedIn more because we're B2B business and they should be present on it." And then I did that. It was more of just a nice thing to do for someone that I already knew in their business. And once we had that kind of presentation, then we realized like, hey, this is maybe something that we can continuously work on. And that then became my first client. That is to this day still my client 2 years later, which, yeah, is kind of the starting point of that.
All right, I get it. Natural jump off point there with a client that's ready to engage you, and then allows you to build a brand with client reference, right? So super cool. Did anybody try to talk you out of taking that leap? And if they did, like, how did you handle that?
Oh, it was 100% like that. So when I left LinkedIn, at the time I was actually there in my segment. I was the number one sales rep in all of North America for them. I was going to be promoted probably in like the next 2 months or so. So most people, and at the time I was 22, 23, something like that. And that was the first time in my life, kind of, I was even making a nice amount of salary and stuff like that, right? Coming from a very normal single parent kind of household in Germany. So while that all was amazing and stuff, like I said, I had my reasons why I wanted to leave and kind of bet on myself. And so at the time, 100%, like internally, when I told people like I'm leaving, a good amount on the one hand was like, oh, why would you do that? Like, you should wait until you're in this certain role or in this certain period, or you should stay at least 3 years and then leave and then do your own thing, or you should stay and then start your own thing on the side before you leave, right? But that was never really an option for me. And then luckily, on the other hand, though, people, not just at LinkedIn, but also at other organizations that I spoke to that have been in these large corporate organizations for many, many years, were actually the ones that kind of were like, yes, you should. Like, I've been here for 8, 9, 10 years, and I'm so involved in this whole environment that I will probably never ever be able to, put myself out of this right now. And I have kids now, and I have a house, and I have a mortgage. So for some people there, that wasn't even an option really to do their own thing and to take that risk. So that is the portion of people that really were like, yeah, do it.
I totally agree with them. I mean, there is a certain window in your life when it makes it much easier to take the leap of faith into entrepreneurism. At least if it's your first time.
Yeah.
If you succeed, right, you can kind of make your own rules and it becomes much more flexible. But yeah,
When did you start?
that's what I was leading to. So my story is kind of like yours. I joined this big medical software company called Cerner in Kansas City, right out of college. And I did because I was already doing some entrepreneurial things, but they weren't making enough money for me to live on. And these nice people at Cerner sent me a overnight FedEx. It was the first time I'd ever received an overnight FedEx for anything in my life. So I was like, wow, an overnight letter I had to sign for. And inside there was an offer letter with a start date and an expiration of like 7 days. And I moved to Kansas City and took that job for $35,000 a year. And I thought I was rich. I was like, man, that's a lot of money. And I found out that it's not a whole lot of money. 6 months later, I was like, okay, I have to use coupons for gas, coupons for food. Just trying to make it from paycheck to paycheck and earn a chance to get a raise. But I was already making kind of 1 foot out the door, trying to figure out how do I find some clients to pay me to build software that I'm already building for them, because I know what their clients are paying. It's, so it's not about me, but this is a lot about you. But, it was definitely really good for me to start my entrepreneurial journey. The first 2 or 3 all happened before I was 28 years old. So, yeah, I applaud you for Believe It Today. So let's talk about that name. Where did the name Believe It Today come from? And what does it mean to someone who's thinking about they might need some LinkedIn consulting?
Well, the name was, I kind of told you, right? I was leaving corporate, and then at the same time I was wanting to do my own business, but at the time I was not exactly sure what it's going to be, right? So the name at the time needed for me to be, because I wanted everything to be official before I made any income, to actually have a business formation set up and everything. I guess I'm German that way. And basically, so that was one thing I had in my head. It needed to be somewhat more general. So this is obviously not advice to anyone to do that in that way. And then at the same time, on one hand, I was like, okay, Believe It Today was still, the free and stuff, and available. On the other hand, it's obviously communicating hey, you can, believe in your brand, you can believe in your personal brand, into your story, into your company, into whoever you are as a personal brand, and you can build that. Because the biggest thing I realized actually when I speak to these CEO founders, and it doesn't matter if they're solopreneurs, it doesn't matter if they have 100 employees, if they have a company that makes $50 million a year, right? They all tell me the same thing, which is basically, do I even have enough stories to tell that people are going to care about, right? And again, you would think people that have 100 employees, whatever, all these big companies, they should have this awareness that, yeah, obviously you do have stories to tell, right? But they don't, first of all. And then secondly, I also want to say, though, that even if you are a solopreneur, right, like myself, basically, I just hired my first employee, but for most time I was basically just by myself. You also have a story to tell. Basically, everyone has a story to tell. If you're an entrepreneur or not, you just kind of have to dig deeper into it and pick these things out and believe in, that kind of storyline and the things you've worked on and you've learned along the way. And that telling these stories will actually help other people, accomplish their own goals. And I think that's the starting point of why should you post on LinkedIn. Probably that's one of the best reasons, to just share your story so others can, get help through reading your stories along their own journey.
So yeah, I think it takes a little bit of you have to get over the fear of sharing your authentic experience to become pretty good at doing it, and for people to enjoy, listening and hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and myself included, actually, a lot of people are just not that familiar with this kind of speaking about their accomplishments, speaking about their story, speaking about details of their life, right? Some people are more fond of that. For example, even sharing things on other social medias like Instagram, TikTok, whatever, right? I'm like a prime example. I do not actually post on Instagram. I have Instagram deleted. I have TikTok deleted. I've most things deleted. But
Wow.
since I was like a sophomore in college when I was 19, I've been posting on LinkedIn, right? I was always in college, that weird LinkedIn kid, basically. But I had my reason for that. Like on Instagram, it was always, for me personally, it was always like, oh, why would I, share and post and tell, for my friends to see all these things that I'm doing. But on LinkedIn, when I did my first post when I was 19, a sophomore, I then had people that I've never known before reach out, comment, and actually become friends, mentors, connections that help me to this day, right? And I remember my very first LinkedIn post back then was pretty much about me moving to the US from Germany, because of entrepreneurship, going to the University of Miami without speaking English, right? And then one of the first people that reached out to me was someone that was also German, moved to Miami, and is an entrepreneur. And then that connection became, like I said, a mentor of mine. And once that happened, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, by sharing my story, I can connect with these people I would have otherwise never met. and that's how I got started with it.
I love that because we coach all the startups that compete in CodeLaunch.com. In every cohort, we challenge them with digital marketing and specifically with video. And one of the things we do is challenge them to make a very short video, 1 minute. And for 30 seconds, tell people about your startup and how it's going to change the world or disrupt the product space or change the way they do something or the way business does something. Whatever that is, tell that story. And then tell them what CodeLaunch is and tell them what it would mean to you and your startup if you made it all the way to the finals of CodeLaunch. And some people are a little bit reserved about that at first, but we get them out of their comfort zone. And we were terrified to implement this feature into CodeLaunch when we did. And, but immediately we got all this positive feedback. We got emails and messages on Discord and all of our communities that, thank you for making me do that. Maybe something similar happened. Someone reached out to them and said, hey, I didn't know you were doing that. I want to help you. Someone they used to know at an old job, a colleague. It could have been anybody at any place, but we don't get anything but positive feedback from that. As we do our code launches internationally, that's a little more challenging, right? Some people, we do our code launch show in Mexico in English, but most of our founders are much more comfortable with Spanish, and so is their audience. So, it's fine. Do your video in Spanish. They do have to pitch in English, but that's just so we can understand them, quite frankly. Because even though we do code launch for Latam in Mexico, we do have an awesome teammate named Eve who can speak Spanish, but we don't have a lot of capability in Spanish. So cool. Well, let's get down to the nitty gritty on LinkedIn a little bit. So I'll ask you a few questions and just kind of give some general advice to our community, wondering if their LinkedIn profile is set up correctly for success.
Yeah,
So
sure.
the first is, what is the biggest misconception people have about building a personal brand on LinkedIn?
I would say I would say the initial part is like just what is LinkedIn and what is it important for, right? I think the biggest misconception there still is about LinkedIn, and I know you don't think that, and a lot of people maybe listening don't think that, but a good amount of people I still speak to still believe that. Basically, the question of why should I even use LinkedIn if I'm not looking for a job, if I have my own business, if I am already employed somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people still have this belief how LinkedIn started is, kind of like a job board, right? With the focus on jobs, that is still the same case that it is just a job board today, right? Where that's just not the case, right? So people really have to get that awareness that LinkedIn is just basically like another social media, like Instagram, like TikTok, like whatever, where you can build brands, right? For companies, for businesses, for individuals, right? And I think, people have to get that understanding. Now, the second thing that people kind of really, which is very simple, I guess, maybe for me from like having been in this realm for a while, but people just sometimes confuse, is that when you think about, okay, I have a business, I want to build my personal brand, should I even be doing that on LinkedIn, or should I do that on Instagram or TikTok, or should I do it on all of them, right? I think the biggest question to ask yourself is your business completely B2B focused, or is it a B2C focused business, or is it a mix, right? And as soon as you are in any kind of direction B2B focused, right, then probably what you should be doing is focusing on LinkedIn, right? Because the biggest difference between LinkedIn and, let's say, Instagram, right, is if you think about your profile, and we'll be looking at your profile in a bit, right, and then we can see what I'm going to say there exactly, which is, if you think about your own profile, the information you have on there, right, is basically your whole professional and also somewhat personal life, right? Where you went to school, what you majored in, what you studied, where you had your first job, how long you were there, and what kind of industry you worked, and what kind of locations you work, what languages you speak, if you're open to work or not, right? You give LinkedIn all these data points, right, to form a profile of yourself, and that database of now over 1 billion people on LinkedIn, right? That an Instagram just doesn't have, right? Like what you have on your Instagram, like maybe your name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe where you're located, maybe where you went to school, but that's kind of it, right? And then it's very visually based, but your LinkedIn profile has so much more data than any kind of other social media. And that's really what LinkedIn is all about and why they have such a strong standing as a company because of that data. Because now if you want to build your brand on there, right, you don't just get 100,000 views, right? You get 100,000 views, but you can see exactly who that person is, where they're living, in what industry they are, if they're a C-suite person or if they're an entry-level position person, right, that just looked at your post, and then you can directly engage with them. And that is the biggest difference from LinkedIn to the other social medias, which is why, again, if you're in B2B, that's what you should be using, even if you're not looking for a job, but, are building a business, even if you're a student, even if you're an employee somewhere. In any kind of case, like it's probably the best thing for you to use if you want to build your career.
Okay. So if you're a startup founder, to summarize that up, you should always be thinking about your LinkedIn as a living, breathing professional record of your personal brand. And it's not something that you just should be thinking about, I need a job, now I should care about. You want it to be a strong brand development and opportunity development tool the day you need it, but not start on that the day you need it.
Correct.
Right.
And it's really, if you're a startup founder, then it's, in most cases, the startup founder or the CEO is the brand of the business, is the business, right? For me, that's the case, right? My business called Believe It Today, but like I am very much the brand of my business, right? So if you are that, then you should build your personal brand on LinkedIn, even more so than your company brand, because people are going to be more interested into you and your stories as a person and your insights rather than your company page posting something, right? Now, if you have 20, 50, 100 employees, that changes a little bit, but it's still so important that you as an individual, as the leader of your company, build that personal brand. And in most cases, even more important than building the company page brand.
Okay. So one more question on like general advice. So we talked about how you should be doing it, how you should stop thinking of it as something that you just need when you need a new opportunity. Is there a number one missed opportunity you see most with LinkedIn profiles or founder LinkedIn profiles?
I would say the most missed, or like the way LinkedIn is used in the most wrong way the most often, is as a pure sales platform, right? Because people are just overselling on LinkedIn. People are just pitch slapping on LinkedIn. People are using it as an additional tool to, I guess, mass emails and so on, right? And I'm sure for you, it's probably the same if you look in your inbox, right, Jason? That's full with copy paste, bad sales outreach messages, right? And that is really not what LinkedIn is about, in my opinion. And that's the way most people use it wrong. What it really is about is, creating these sustainable long-term relationships, not by a pitch slap, but actually slowly by getting to know the person, by building these relationships, and then everything else when it comes to clients, sales, and so on, that happens after.
Yeah. So when I log into LinkedIn, it's like, and there's just a whole bunch of people I don't know asking me something about. It's just really clear they want to sell me something for whatever reason. One of my previous jobs, my current title, whatever that is, right? And I don't really have anything against it. It just makes it hard to use, I wondered if you could share with us, when you were at LinkedIn, did they understand that was making it it's like probably everybody's most complained about user experience with logging into LinkedIn is that it's just spamorama.
Yeah. And so it's interesting, right? Because so on the one hand, it is making the experience worse, right? And it's also just annoying, right? And it definitely is dangerous too, because it makes certain, like, a lot of people see that and then think for themselves, well, everybody's just like selling on LinkedIn, pitch slapping, whatever, right? So I should probably also not be using it for it, right? Because I'm just going to be one of those messages. But that is the wrong thinking, right? Like the right thinking in that scenario really for me is to see all these people using it wrong, right? And then think about, well, if I actually don't send copy paste messages, if I actually don't just pitch slap, but I send good selectively picked connection requests to people that are personalized, that I actually want to create relationships with, right? Then that can be even more effective than on a platform where everybody is doing it the right way. You know what I mean? So if you receive a message that is actually nice, personalized, good written, says something about your profile where you see, oh, that person actually looked at my profile, right? Then for me, at least in my experience, if I do, I'm very happy about that. And I actually react very positively about that, even more so because there's so many bad messages out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's annoying, but to a lot of founders out there, what I want to say is see it as a chance to do it the right way, because it's going to be received even better at those people that value those real good connections and people that actually take the time to write these messages, right? And to the part that you actually asked me about LinkedIn, what they're doing about it. So there's a lot of ways how LinkedIn actually tries to work on that. So one way is, for example, if you use certain tools of LinkedIn to send out messages. At least when I still work there, so I'm not exactly sure how that looks like today. But there was a certain percentage of responses that you have to get from your messages that you send out. And if that's not the case, your account will temporarily be deactivated, right?
Right.
So LinkedIn does these kind of things to prevent basically spamming like that, right? But obviously with technology and add-ons and extensions and so on, people find ways around it, I guess, right? But yeah, no, I know they're working on it. They used to work on it too, and I'm sure they still are.
So you have been using a word, I've heard you use it 4 or 5 times that I've never heard before. It's pitch slap with a P, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and what is that? Is that a LinkedIn like cultural word, or is that just what you call like another word for spamming people?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it is maybe like and you have to think about this. Like I probably, throughout all my clients and stuff, I probably post now, technically speaking, over 30 posts a week or so at this point, right? So I'm on LinkedIn nonstop, so I'm probably way too much in that bubble. So what pitch slapping means is basically if you connect with someone and that person just sends you their pitch whatsoever, not personalized, and is just trying to sell you something and book a meeting, or have you click some link or whatever. And that is what you would call pitch slapping, I guess.
Okay, you heard
and
it.
that's what
You heard it,
should
guys. Don't
not
pitch
do.
slap on LinkedIn,
Correct.
and that's with a P. Okay, people. And do you have a LinkedIn ick? So, what is something that you see and go, "Oh my gosh, never do that." That's the thing that is your pet peeve on someone's LinkedIn behavior or their LinkedIn profile, besides pitch slapping, which we already discussed.
Yeah, there's a growing trend that is definitely my LinkedIn ig,
Okay.
which is basically the way the algorithm works on LinkedIn, is that it, at least as far as I know, and from my experience, is that if a post gets posted and released on LinkedIn, basically they look at, okay, how many likes, how many comments, and so on does it get, in the first 30 minutes, hour, and then if it does very well, now it gets dispersed to even more people. And I guess that's the general like social media algorithm for a lot of platforms, right?
I hear that about Reddit too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now what happens to be the case, apparently, at least again from my experience and what I've seen, but it's all not a fact because LinkedIn never really shares much about their algorithm factually. So it's all things people just have been kind of observing and stuff. So that's all the stuff I'm sharing today too, all like observations from, lots of different LinkedIn posts. What you've seen is that comments play a big role in, okay, how much does a post now get dispersed? So if a post has a lot of comments, it gets dispersed even more, right? So what people started doing basically is creating these big group chats or big WhatsApp groups, for example, of a bunch of different, let's say, solopreneurs, right? Like sometimes hundreds of different solopreneurs. And what they do is they just all post their posts in there. And then all of these solopreneurs just comment on each other's posts to get as much engagement as possible,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it works, sadly.
I have contemplated doing that myself at times when I desperately need a LinkedIn post to be seen. I mean, I have to admit it. I mean, there's been times where, like, CodeLaunch we started it in 2013. And we're trying to get people to apply. We can't help you if you don't apply. If we don't know you, you don't know about CodeLaunch. And I know
Right.
at every event deadline, which we're facing one right now in Toronto, Canada, we're trying to get all the founders in Canada to know. And just like anybody else in a sales position, I want to figure out some way for everybody to all of a sudden know about CodeLaunch all at once, just like that. And when I do, I'm like, man, I wish I had a horde of comment, like, and share people that could just swoop in and cause the algorithm to go nuts. So
Yep.
After admitting that guilty thought, keep telling your story.
Yeah, so people do it because so far there's nothing really that has happened on the other end from LinkedIn side or what, as far as I can tell, to like stop that from working, right, with the algorithm. And then people do get lots of engagement, right? Now, there's a couple of things that are just, in my opinion, really not good about it, or not even just not ethical, but rather just like at the end of the day, in my opinion, negative towards you and your brand. Which is, first of all, anyone that is remotely like knowledgeable of LinkedIn or using LinkedIn or seeing posts, right? They will figure that out, because it's just unnatural that a post for 95% of the posts, it's unnatural that a post has, the similar amount of comments than likes, right? Because it's just more of a effort to write a comment than a like, right? So as soon as you see a post, unless the post like actively has some kind of structure where it asks the person to comment something on the post, right? Unless that's the case, for the most part, if a post has, like more comments than likes, there might be some kind of, like group chat behind that. And what they call that is engagement pods, right?
Engagement
So there might
pods.
be
Okay.
an engagement pod behind that. So first of all, it's obvious. So whoever, sees it, that knows a little bit about it, knows that you're doing it. And then secondly, what is just not good about it is that, yeah, you will get engagement, right? But you will only get the engagement of all these people that are basically commenting on it and their networks, right? So if you, for example, are actually, I don't know, selling socks online, or like selling socks and are trying to get into Costco or whatever, right, with those socks. But now you have just this whole bunch of solopreneurs that are all just service-based businesses, right? Commenting under your posts, and now you have a huge engagement. It's probably not going to be the right target audience at all that you're trying to speak to, nor is it organically actually people that are enjoying your content and liking, commenting on it, and so on, right?
So it's an exercise in vanity, is what it really is.
Yeah, and at the very least of everything, it's obviously a shortcut to actually creating good content that gets good engagement organically, right? And with everything in life, for me, if it's a shortcut, like if there is a way to do it the right way, you probably should do that. And then the results long term, at least, are going to get better. And I would be also surprised if LinkedIn never figures out a way how to kind of prevent that from happening too, because it's not good. And it also diminishes the brands and audiences of people that actually honestly and organically are building their brands, right? So that's another thing. If your brand is fully built on that, like, I think at some point LinkedIn's going to probably figure out a way how to, diminish that effect of it, and then your brand is going to be.
And then what you're going to do? You don't have an authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good advice. Don't leverage an engagement pod. That is an ick. And okay, so I have some more questions that we'll get to if there is time, but I want to get to what we teased at the very beginning. Skylar, it's time to roast my LinkedIn profile. Improving is a software development and consulting services firm founded in 2006, with locations across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Improving is deeply committed to establishing trust with clients, partners, communities, and more. Improving offers modern digital consulting services like software development and engineering, IT consulting services, and agile training and certifications. Whether you need software solutions, technology consulting, or training, Improving is dedicated to supporting your business every step of the way. Feel free to explore our offerings at improving.com. Most importantly, since 2019, Improving has been our partner here at CodeLaunch and is helping us scale our traveling event and community across North America. Okay, Skylar has my LinkedIn profile up, and now it's time to roast it, Skylar. Tell me, let's start with what's good about it before you tell me what's awful.
Yeah, let's do it. So basically, there's a lot of different parts to your LinkedIn profile, right? But we'll start at the most important ones, which is, obviously on the top of your profile. So you have your profile picture, you have your banner, and then you have kind of like this title section, right? Mm-hmm. And those are basically the most important pieces of your profile. Because those are the ones that are most visual to all people as soon as they go on your profile. So when you build your brand on LinkedIn, post on LinkedIn, your goal technically is for someone to then go on your profile, check out your profile, connect with you, learn about you, follow some kind of call to action, right? So what you want to do is have your profile kind of be like a landing page, kind of like your website, just in a more personal way, for those people out there, right? Which is why these first three things that I just said are very important. And to kind of come to the good and bad here for you, Jason.
Let's start with the good. Start with the good.
Yeah. So with the good is definitely that you bring in personality here, right? Like I said, with everything I said today, is when you want to build on LinkedIn, it should not be salesy. It should not be just super, focused on showing that you're the best or whatever, right? But it should actually be personal. You should be able to smile, kind of like you do here, Jason, right, in the pictures. And you should have just like some personality in here. And I think you're already doing good with that, with the pictures, with the authenticity in here, right? And is the skyline, is that a specific skyline in the background?
I think that's an imaginary skyline
Okay.
with an imaginary rocket ship.
Well, you see, for example, and I guess we can then start, a little bit with the roasting stuff already. If you then would put, for example, Texas skyline in there, that makes it even a little more personal, right?
Okay.
But besides that, I think the banner here, to say some more positive things too, has not too much stuff on it. Some people just overcrowd their banners, which is not good because it's, especially on mobile, it's very small, and over half of people on LinkedIn are actually using it on mobile versus desktop. So think about that. And then you have the company branding on here. So I think that is all good. And to talk about your tagline here, right? I think you have a lot of like good, important things here that you want to have there, right? With president and founder of CodeLaunch. The reason why the tagline is, the title line here is kind of important too, is that, and you guys have probably seen that before, if you see someone's comments, right, on like a LinkedIn comment, for example, so not even a post of them, but even in a post of them, it shows you not just their name in that like very short little window. It also shows you the beginning of that title section, right? So you should always have the very most important thing that you want to communicate in there. And you have that in there, which is really important, right? Now, the things that I would probably adjust here are for your profile picture. Again, think about mobile being small, right? So you probably want to focus here more on your face. you don't, in my opinion, you don't need to bring in, your company branding in the profile picture,
Right.
just because you will already have it
It's
here.
already there.
You will already have it there. You'll have it here again, right?
Yep.
And you should rather just use that to have people remember your face and have your face there more in focus and more zoomed in, basically, right? So as soon as you would zoom this in, like I think that profile picture would be perfect, right? Um, and then the other two things here for the title picture, I would just maybe add some kind of text here on what you guys do, right, with CodeLaunch. For example, to support and get funding for startups, or
Oh, like in the
whatever you
banner,
guys.
like the background
Yeah,
banner,
yeah.
indicate what we do. Okay.
So you could put, for example, you could put yourself here to the right. You could put your CodeLaunch logo to the top left, and then you would have some space here in the middle to put some text that is kind of like either a call to action or just explaining in a few, like 4 or 5 words, what you guys do, right? Or who you help, basically,
So you see, we're gonna have work to do in my profile.
That's the goal. So that's something you can do. And then the last piece for the top part of your profile here is in here. Like I said, that's already good. The only thing I always like to see in here is also something personal, right? And that could be something family related, or kind of like a hobby you like, right? Just to show a little more personality. So, for example, one of my clients, he is an 8-time granddad. We put that in there, and we're like 8-time granddad at the end, not at the first thing, but it shows you just some kind of personality and makes you feel, as a stranger that sees your profile for the first time, as if you know that person already a little more than you actually do, right? So
Yeah.
now, if you then connect with them, have a conversation, whatever, it just gives you that little nudge, maybe, to create an even deeper or easier connection with them,
Yeah. I'm looking forward to putting these changes in, Skylar. Actually, just like I'm all excited now. Those are
That's the
three
goal here.
three easy actionable changes. So why redundantly put the CodeLaunch brand in my headshot and on my banner? That's A. B. There's plenty of space on the banner to kind of tell what CodeLaunch is
Mm.
doing, and explain it to people. Because let's be honest, there's still a lot of people who aren't subscribing to We Code You Launch podcast yet, who don't know what it is, but they're going to find out soon. Um, and um, and then the third thing was put something personal in my series of taglines, not just all professional titles. And yeah, I mean, I've kind of filled that up. I can find one that can go, and put in something like Space Camp Graduate. How about that?
For example, like I think that's perfect, because like if you have president founder of CodeLaunch, corporate VC, angel investor, like like at least one of them is kind of double spoken about, I feel like, and then
Yeah,
you
right.
can put something more in
I
there.
agree. Hmm. Okay, so let's get to one more. Are there any icks on my profile? Any just, oh my God, please fix this,
Yeah,
Taylor.
actually, no, you do. You do have one thing that in my opinion, but it's all opinions too, right? I would definitely not do, or
Okay.
at least like tell people not to do.
Yeah.
And I'm actually interested to hear why you did that, and where that is coming from, because there's also different things on that, which is basically, and you're not the only one that does this, right?
Okay.
So some people speak about themselves on their LinkedIn profile in third person, right? And I'm just curious, like where's that coming from?
Um,
And
I
then I will say something to that,
I
and
don't
what I
know.
think
Like I
about
don't know when the last time this was put in here or who did it even. There's
it.
been times where I would ask someone on my team to refresh my profile, and I really don't know if I wrote that, or I can tell you it was not AI, because that profile definitely predated the
Yeah,
free public use of AI tools. So
yeah.
how should we do it? Not in third person?
Yeah, so and I think this is coming from and I don't know like why someone like, or who did that on your team for what reason, right? But I think a lot of people, first of all, see that in
It could
other
have been me
profiles.
for sure. I just don't know.
Yeah,
I can't answer the questions of why it's in third person.
yeah, but so basically, first of all, a lot of people have that in their profile, right? Like in third person. And I think it maybe comes from some people thinking that that sounds more sophisticated, I guess, right?
It probably
or
came
more
from me watching a
professional.
lot of Clint Eastwood movies and John Wayne movies and other cool 80s stuff like the Terminator and thinking, well, third person is the way to go.
Yeah.
What I'm trying
So
to say is it might be generational. I don't know.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know what. No, because a lot of people, even like young people and stuff, I've seen that. Not that you're not young, but I mean like students and stuff. I've seen that sometimes even that they see it somewhere, they put it in third person. I think it sounds like more sophisticated, professional. Um, in my opinion, if you go on someone's profile and you see that they in their bio speak in third person, right? Technically, right? If you think about it, there's only two ways that happen, right? So either that person didn't write their bio themselves, right?
Right.
Which like you should, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like it's more personal if you do, and like if you want to speak to someone, you want to speak to someone that's actually managing their own LinkedIn profile, right? And if you reach out to them, you want to speak to them, right? So in that route, it's not the best idea. And then the only other option really is that they did write it themselves, but they spoke about themselves in third person, right? And
And what kind of psycho does that?
yeah, so that's not amazing either, right? So no matter what you really think, how it sounds or what, in my opinion, it's something that's I don't know, someone started at some point, people like jumped on that train a little bit, but I don't think that that helps you when it comes to okay, I want to build my very authentic personal brand, right?
Right. It
So
doesn't sound
yeah,
very
and that
authentic or personal.
yeah, and that was just like a quick thing that I saw on your profile. I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Well, I am really glad I could deliver you an ick today that was on my profile. And
Yeah.
by the time, listeners, that you hear this or see it on YouTube, at the CodeLaunch YouTube channel, I promise you my LinkedIn is going to look different than what we're talking about now. But in the About section, like, where there's like a paragraph or two about yourself, it is entirely in third person tense perspective, which is an ick. Do not do that. By the time you look at my LinkedIn profile, it'll look like I wrote it myself, about myself, just being very straightforward. Not as if a mythological third person body of respected people described me and my professional career. So thank you for that, Skylar. That's awesome. Now there's not much time left, so I'm gonna ask you to squeeze this in.
Yeah.
First of all, if you have anything more like hilarious, awesome stuff about my profile, now is the time to slam me with it.
Uh, I don't think so. I don't think anything crazy. I think,
Be careful,
yeah, no,
Eve
we
is here.
talked
She
about.
may take some differences with you if you.
Yeah, no, I think then obviously we could have a whole nother conversation about how to post, what to post, how to speak about those things, right? But when it comes just to kind of how to structure your profile and so on, the featured section is kind of important in my opinion because you can feature not just posts like you did, you could also feature you can feature basically a button to like have kind of like a link curated that then kind of ends up looking like a button, for example, towards your podcast, right? Or towards your website. And I think those things are very useful and they kind of, yeah, again, like help you
Yeah.
put a button to your website, to your
Well,
podcast,
that's
to
another
your
thing. Like that leads back to
calendar
your
on your
first
LinkedIn.
guidance because the reason that we probably aren't taking advantage of that is that LinkedIn is always improving their platform. They're always adding new things. Like the fact that that I could put a button in that section is something that I'm sure last time we refreshed the section probably didn't exist and we didn't know it. So we all need to be more active in LinkedIn, looking at our profiles, using the tools that it makes available to you, like the one you just mentioned. So, final question for today, Skylar. Um, are there any tools, or are there any like third party thing you could type in your profile, and then it will tell you like an optimizing tool or something? Is there anything that you could offer our community of people that want to succeed building their personal brand in LinkedIn? Tools they could use.
Um, so tools is actually a good point that I want to say something to in general on LinkedIn because it's like something people have to be careful with. And I'll speak about that in a second. But then to basically like figure out an easier way how to build your profile, what to look out for. Basically just speak to people that are already doing it good. Like go on profiles that you like do your research. Same with posts, like try to follow people that you actually enjoy their content of, learn from that. Build your own brand. Obviously don't copy people's posts, but find inspiration. If you're a business and you have a relatively large business with employees and so on, right? If you want to build your brand on LinkedIn, but no, you're not going to have the time to post 2, 3, 4 times a week, right? And split it up and figure out what to post. Like find someone to support you with. Doesn't have to be me, but like someone like me that does that because it's going to be, it's not about just taking your LinkedIn away from you. So when I work with clients, it's really much just working with them one-on-one, taking time off their plate, but still involving them into that process. Because if I would do it just for them, then the post would not be authentic and they would not actually be valuable to people, and the engagement would probably not be great either. So when I work with people, I take a lot of time off their plate and do a lot of things with them for them. But at the end of the day, it's always with the input. It's always their stories. It's always in the tone that they want to speak about certain topics. And it's always their stories, right? Of their company, of their employees, of their business, of their past, right? And I think that's really important. So there's not necessarily like a tool that comes to mind, but rather just like work with people by using LinkedIn to connect with people, really, and then get better at it step by step, right? And when it comes to tools and LinkedIn in general, because I think that's really important, there's a bunch of external sales tools, tools to, I don't know, like do certain things on LinkedIn. You just have to be careful with that. Kind of like I explained at the beginning, LinkedIn's whole value is based on their data, right? So any tool that in any kind of form scrapes data from LinkedIn, tries to do that, like tries to send out messages automatically, stuff like that, is for the very most part not well seen by LinkedIn, to the least. And in most cases, probably LinkedIn is trying to get rid of those companies, right?
Yeah.
Because that is all their value. And as soon as anything would take that data off them, that is not what they want. So
it's probably contrary to their fair use license agreement. And
yeah, no, that too.
And they could ban you, right? You don't want to get banned off LinkedIn, and then where are you going to be?
Correct. And that's exactly why I always tell people not to use any third-party services, at least for the most part, unless they specifically are allowed by LinkedIn in their terms of service, whatever, because there's some. But for the most part, yeah, they can totally get you banned. And then it's really not good. And even if you get unbanned, then it's still probably going to have a big impact on your profile and your engagement and so on,
Yeah.
So it's just not worth it. Same with the engagement parts. Short, like at the end of the day, what's the most important part here is like you get from LinkedIn what you put in, right? I would not suggest to try to go many shortcuts. It's really like it can give you a lot. It can give you the biggest opportunities, probably some of the biggest opportunities you've seen in your business, but only if you also actually spend the time on it and do it the right way.
Okay, Skylar, you've been really generous with your time today. We learned about not doing engagement pods. We learned about not too much redundancy on our profile. We learned about some icks, like third person about descriptions. Don't put an ick on your profile. We learned that Jason W. Taylor has a lot of work to do in his profile. And so if somebody wants to find out more from you, how do they find you, Skylar Steudter, at Believe It Today?
Yeah, I mean, just find me on LinkedIn, basically. For the most part, LinkedIn is, my biggest brand. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Or you could obviously always, send me an email as well to skylar@believeittoday.com.
Skylar@believeittoday.com. There you go, folks. All right. Thanks a lot. It was nice to meet you at Miami and Startup Mania in Miami, and for you to come on and share your valuable professional experience. And, I hope that you'll connect with some companies that want to bring you in and fix up everybody on the Salesforce's profile at once and get them all executing at a higher level. Engagements like that seem like a great thing for any company. Reach out to believeittoday.com, Skylar Steudter. Thanks to my CodeLaunch team, Cece, Ashlyn, and Eve, everyone at Improving, and our special guest, Skylar Steudter from Miami. If you enjoyed the content of this podcast episode, please subscribe wherever you listen or watch. Founders, hit our website, CodeLaunch.com, to find out when our next competition is or event, and follow us for updates on our social media. Remember, CodeLaunch community, keep your feet on the ground, but keep reaching for the startups.